Level 1, $400 a month. A room. Not an apartment. A room in someone else's house, with someone else's furniture, someone else's smell in the hallway, someone else's name on the lease. You share a bathroom with two strangers you met on a listing site. The door doesn't lock all the way. You learned that the first week, at 1 a.m., when it drifted open on its own. Your mattress sits on the floor. Not by choice. A frame costs $80 you don't have this month. You tell yourself it's temporary. You've been telling yourself that for 11 months. The landlord doesn't know your name. He knows the name on the lease. And it isn't yours. You're the extra person. The one who Venmos your share by the first. The one who isn't supposed to be here past 6 months, according to a lease you never signed. You keep your door closed. You keep your voice down. You keep your life in one closet and a suitcase you never fully unpacked. Because unpacking would mean admitting you live here. Your roommate Denny doesn't save anything. Denny makes more than you and spends more than you. On a car he can't really afford, and shoes that arrive every other week. Denny laughs when you turn down a night out. "It's $20, he says. You don't tell him $20 is a third of what you're saving this week. You just say you're tired. You're not tired. You're calculating. You're always calculating. The first rule of $400, the room isn't the cost. The cost is pretending you don't notice it's not yours. Level 2, $650, your own room now. A real lease, your own name on it. In an apartment split 3 ways, with people you found through a friend of a friend. A door that locks. A bed frame. Small things that feel enormous when you remember the mattress on the floor. You still share a kitchen. You still hear everything through the walls. But nobody can walk into your room without knocking. And the first time someone does knock, waits, and doesn't come in until you answer. You sit there for a second, just feeling it. Being asked. Being respected as a boundary instead of an inconvenience. You start a savings account you don't touch. Not because you have discipline, because you remember the floor. Denny texts you a photo of a new couch. Financed, 18 months, 0%. He says, like that means it's free. You don't respond right away. You do the math anyway. 18 payments is 18 months of Denny being one bad week from behind. You're not ahead of Denny. You just stopped being one bad week from the floor. The second rule of $650. This is the first level where the money you don't spend matters more than the money you do. Level 3, $950. A studio. Yours alone. No roommates, no shared walls with strangers, no compromise about the thermostat or the dishes in the sink that aren't yours. 400 square feet that answer to nobody but you. The first night, you don't unpack either. Not because you're not staying, because you don't quite believe it yet. You sit on the floor, in the middle of an empty room you're paying for entirely by yourself. And it's the quietest you've ever felt. Not lonely. Quiet. You learn what $950 actually costs. Not the rent. The isolation. Nobody splits the electric bill anymore. Nobody's home when you get home. You call your mother more than you used to. You don't tell her why. Denny gets evicted that spring. Not from a scandal, from math. The couch payment, the car payment, a missed month, then 2. You let him stay on your floor for 9 nights. He doesn't ask why your floor has a mattress and a frame, and his never did. You don't tell him. The third rule of $950. Independence is expensive in ways that don't show up on the lease. Level 4, $1,400. A 1-bedroom in a building with an elevator and a person at a desk in the lobby who knows your name by the 3rd week. You didn't move up because you make dramatically more. You moved up because 2 years of not touching that savings account finally showed up as a number with room to breathe. You buy a real couch, not financed. You paid for it in one transfer and felt nothing break in your chest when you did. Your co-worker Priya rents the unit above you, twice the size, at a number she mentions once and never again. in the tone people use when a number is meant to be noticed. You do the math on her salary. It doesn't add up without help you don't ask about. You stop comparing, not because you stopped noticing, because you realized her ceiling and your ceiling are built out of different materials, and comparing them tells you nothing true about either one. The fourth rule of $1,400. This is where rent stops being survival and starts being a choice you get to make on purpose. Level 5, $2,100. A 2-bedroom, the second room empty, unfurnished, waiting. You don't call it an office. You don't call it anything. You just leave it open, because for the first time, you're not renting the exact size of your life. You're renting a little more than you need, on purpose, and the extra space feels like proof of something. You open a separate account. You name it house, which feels embarrassing the first time you type it, and then doesn't. The second, Denny calls to catch up. He's renting again, a room this time, the same kind of room you started in 7 years ago. He asks how you afford a place like this. You tell him you don't know. You do know. You just don't know how to say it without it sounding like a lecture he didn't ask for. You start watching listings you can't afford, yet the way other people watch shows. Not out of longing, out of research. The fifth rule of $2,100. This is the level where renting starts feeling less like a ceiling and more like a waiting room. Level 6, the offer. $340,000. A starter home, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, a yard the size of a parking space, in a neighborhood you'd never heard of 6 months ago, and now know better than the one you grew up in. You've seen 40 listings. You've made 2 offers. This is the one that gets accepted. The inspection finds a roof with 5 good years left. The lender finds a rate that makes your stomach drop. And then, somehow, still makes sense on the spreadsheet you've rebuilt 11 times. You sign more documents in one afternoon than you've signed in your entire life combined, and none of them feel real until the very last one. The one where someone hands you a set of keys that don't open anyone else's door. You sit on the floor of an empty living room that belongs to you, the way you sat on the floor of that first studio, except this time you know exactly why it's quiet. It's not isolation. It's yours. Priya sends a congratulations text. Denny doesn't see the post for 3 weeks, then sends one line. Proud of you, man. You believe him. The 6th rule of the offer. The mortgage doesn't feel like freedom yet. It feels like a different kind of weight, just one you finally chose to carry. Level 7. Year 5 of the mortgage. The number on the principal has moved less than you hoped and more than you feared. You've replaced a water heater, painted every room, learned what a French drain is the hard way, at 2 a.m. in the rain. Nobody warned you ownership means the calls stop coming from a landlord and start coming from your own phone to yourself, asking why the basement smells like that. But something else has shifted too. You stopped calculating rent increases every January, because there aren't any. The number that once controlled your whole year is fixed now, and the fixed number, even a heavy one, feels lighter than the moving one ever did. Denny rents a nicer place now. He's doing fine. You don't compare anymore. Not out of restraint, out of habit. The comparing stopped mattering somewhere around the 3rd roof repair. The 7th rule of year 5, ownership doesn't remove the weight. It just lets you know exactly how heavy it is, and exactly when it ends. Level 8, the letter. 22 years early. You paid extra whenever you could. Small amounts, inconsistent, unglamorous. The kind of thing that doesn't make a good story until it's over. The letter says the loan is satisfied. Paid in full. You read it twice standing at the mailbox. The same mailbox you filled out change of address forms for 8 years ago, with hands that were, back then, still figuring out how to sign a lease without flinching. You walk back inside a house that owes nothing to anyone. Not the bank. Not a landlord. Not a roommate named Denny asleep on a floor that used to be yours too. You think about the room, the one with the mattress on the ground, and the door that didn't lock. You don't feel superior remembering it. You feel like you're looking at a photo of someone you used to know well, and don't anymore. Not because they changed, but because the room around them did. Somewhere tonight, someone is sitting on a mattress on the floor of a room that isn't theirs, listening to a door that doesn't lock all the way, telling themselves it's temporary. They don't know yet that it can be, not because the rent changes overnight, because 11 years from now, they'll be the ones signing a letter that says paid in full, standing in a kitchen that finally, completely, belongs to them. The house doesn't care what room you started in. It only cares that you kept walking toward it.